Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our church family here in Maryville. I really think of it as a family. So as we're beginning, you know you have prayer cards in the front of your chairs there. If you have any prayers that you would like us to share with you, please prepare them and we'll pick them up before we have our congregational prayer. So, giving back, Georgia Cumberland Conference Ministries is the loose offering today. Well, actually, the emphasis is on that, and it'll also go to the GCA, which is the academy. You can take that QR code if you want to do it online. There's a variety of ways to do it. You can go on the website and so on. There are many ways to do it. And we have these beautiful little offering boxes at the entrances. Okay, pastor and elder visitation. As an elder, this is a lot of fun for me. So, I would like you to share in our fun. And I want to encourage you that we would love to visit with you in your home, with your family. So all of you are in what is called a parish. Each elder has a parish. So different elders an elder will contact each of your families to see if you're interested to have a family visit with us and the pastor. So this is going to be going on now until the pastor leaves on his sabbatical, and then afterwards we'll continue. Okay, talent show brought to you by the young adults. That's on the 31st, the end of January at 6:30. That should be a lot of fun too. Church business meeting, it's been pushed off to February 7th at 6. So evidently that is not going to be online. So game night, February 7th. That's after the business meeting. So business first, fun later. Okay. So our scriptural emphasis today is right on the front of our bulletin. And we can read it together. Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice. So that's what we're here for rejoicing.
Would you guys please stand for our call to worship? Lord, I want to be a Christian. It's right over there.
In my heart, Lord, I
Let's bow our heads. Dear Lord, you've asked us to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and our neighbors as ourselves. To do that, we need your Spirit, and we need it right now. And we ask you to infect us in a good way with your Spirit so we can love you in our heart and love others as we love you. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.
Please remain standing for our opening hymn, He Leadeth Me.
Well, now as we're getting prepared to pray together, perhaps the deacons can pick up the prayer cards. And as they're doing that, I'm going to read you a little verse that I got inspired because of what the pastor's been preaching about lately. Out of Romans 1, verse 20, it says, For Ever since the world was created, people have seen the earth and sky. Through everything God made, they can clearly see his invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature. So they have no excuse for not knowing God. We have so much evidence around us, and we can choose to see it's from our Creator. So, any cards? No? Oh, wow, that's new. All right. Okay. Ah, yes. Yeah, just to refresh your memories, these prayer cards are shared, if you so request. They're shared with all the elders, and there's a prayer group that prays for you as well. So you are not alone in this walk. So, and to reinforce also, you know, as I said, you're not alone. Feel free to call the elders, of course the pastor, and we want to go with you in whatever journey you're having trouble with, or joys with too. So, we can now bow our heads or kneel as we pray together. Dear Jesus, we thank you for our church family. Family here in Maryville, and really this church extends throughout the world. And we want to extend it throughout our community as well. And here we can connect with your people who are letting your Spirit move in their lives. It's so special that we can be with like believers, sharing with you. We also want your sweet drive to love others, to love our spouse, our kids, our parents, our family and friends and strangers. Some of us are really hurting with our bodies and maybe with our hearts. Yet we thank you for every little improvement, and we look forward to when none of these troubles will exist. You've asked us into a grand experiment, an experiment with connecting with you. We want to taste and see your good, Lord, so we've chosen to make you the center of our heart, the center of our mind. We need your connection all the time. As Paul said, he prayed unceasingly. That means he spoke with you unceasingly day and night, whenever he's awake. And you did too with your Father, Jesus. And that's what we want. We want to be led because we trust you. We want to learn to trust you. That's the experiment, trusting you and obeying because we love you. We ask for protection from this ice storm for all around. And we also ask for your blessing on the pastor's words to us, really, through your Spirit to us. And we ask this all in your name, Jesus. Amen. So, Kathleen, is it that is giving the children's story? Ah, okay, very good.
Okay, boys and girls, we're almost finished. I'm hearing myself right there, so it's kind of scary. Are you going to put that down? So, good morning, children and adults. So, my name is Luminitza McIntosh, and I am the mother of Catherine McIntosh, Katie, we like to call her, who is a teacher at the elementary school. So we surprised her on Wednesday and just showed up at her door for the weekend. We heard it was going to be a terrible weekend, so we wanted to support her. But anyway, so Luminitza, have you ever heard of a name like that? I'm Romanian. I was born in Romania, and 51 years ago this month, I came to this wonderful country. Long story. But I want to tell you another true story about someone who didn't leave their country, but they left their home and went and resettled somewhere else. So John was a young boy. He lived out east in the United States, kind of like around where you guys are. And he worked hard. He worked on his parents' farm. And when he got a little older, about 20 years old, his dad said, "You know what? You've worked hard for me. You've always talked about wanting to go out west. I know I don't want to do that. But here, go ahead. I'm going to give you a little money, and you go and make a life for yourself." So John headed out west. And he went, and he didn't have any specific place in mind, but he would stop, and he'd look at the land, and he thought, I think I'll go a little farther. So he went out, and pretty soon he got to a beautiful piece of land. He thought, wait a second, this is perfect. There's some trees, there's some flat land where I can grow things, there's water, there's a river, everything that I need. I see some hills in the background. I think this is where I'm going to build my little home. So he got the land, and he built just a small little home. Well, John, years went by. Slowly, other people actually saw that same area of our beautiful country, and they settled there. Well, John never ended up getting married. He just had his little home there, his little farm. And pretty soon, like I said, other people bought property around, and then a little town sprung up. And then over the years, a city now was in that area. And his property was right there in the midst of it all. Well, John really liked his property. And over time, different people had said, hey, I really like this area. I'll offer you, are you willing to sell? Nope. I like my land. Well, he grew older and older. By now, he's in his 70s. And one day, two gentlemen came to the door. Opened the door. Well, good evening, Mr. Smith. We've got a proposition for you. If you're wanting my land, I don't even want to hear it. Don't even start. Oh, no. We just want to talk to you about, well, here, have a sit. Do you realize how much your property is worth? It doesn't matter. I came here as a young man. I'm going to die on this property. Well, let's just think about this a minute. What if we were to offer you, I don't care if you offered me $20,000, I wouldn't take it. Well, sir, we're willing to give you $200,000. $200,000? And he turned around, he looked, he said, for this house, and for this property. Have you seen some of the other properties around? Don't you think they look a little better than mine? Oh, well, you don't understand real estate. This is really important to us. $200,000. Well, let me think about that. You think about it. We'll be back in 2 days. Well, actually, as they were leaving, he said, actually, I think I'll take that. I think I could maybe find something else that would suit me just well. But just in case, come back in 2 days. So after the gentleman left, he just couldn't believe it. He was in shock. He knew he loved this place, but he didn't think that it was worth that much. So he got to thinking. He looked at the front door. The paint was peeling. That shutter was just barely hanging on. So you know what he did? Even though he was fairly old, in his late 70s now, he went out and he got his hammer. And he got his ladder, and he climbed up and he started hammering in the loose nails. And he found a paintbrush, and he found an old can of paint. He said, I'm gonna see if I can make that front door look a little better. I'd feel really bad giving them this place for $200,000 when it looks like that. No, can't do that. So he worked real hard for 2 days. 2 days later, the gentleman, sure enough, came to the door. All right, gentlemen, I've decided for sure. I'm willing to take your money, but you must take the place as is. They said, wonderful, wonderful. You've made a great decision, Mr. Smith. After he signed the papers, and as they were leaving, he'd been waiting. And he finally said, gentlemen. They turned around, and he said, didn't you see what I did to the place? And they said, what? Don't you see my newly painted door? Very nice, Mr. Smith, very nice. And did you notice that this piece of wood was hanging here, and it's all fixed up for you? I fixed it up for you. Oh, they said, that was so kind of you. We appreciate your effort. But Mr. Smith, we're tearing this shack down. We're building a mansion. You are? All my hard work? And that's a true story, boys and girls. And do you know what I want to tell you about this story? We are just like that house, that man. We have what we think is just fine for us. But then there's Jesus who wants to come in, and he wants to completely make you a new creation. You know, when we try to fix ourselves up, the Bible says in Isaiah that all our righteousness, all his hard work was just like filthy rags. It's nothing compared to what Jesus can do. If you're willing to hand over the deed to the property, to your life, and say, here you go, God, you're in control. He can take your life. He can make a beautiful mansion. In Corinthians, it tells us he'll make a new creation completely. So never forget that, boys and girls. We cooperate with Jesus. We need to give him our will. We need to abide in Jesus. But we can't do it on our own. It's an embarrassment. Just like that man tried so hard. It's so much work. It's so much easier to give your life over to Jesus and let him create in you. So that's our story for today. You can go back to your seat now.
Thank you, Hannah, for that beautiful song. And thank you for Rachel and Cody for being minute men and minute women, right? Last minute, be able to put together, lead us in worship here this morning. I also wanted, it was, you mentioned last week, it was really nice to see Bill Gillette be able to come up here and lead us in music again. But I wanted to thank, I forgot to mention, I want to thank Dennis and Dan and Cody, because they're the ones who set up this ramp, so that way they can work their way up here. And then, one last little announcement. Tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. prayer session, we will not be doing the prayer session tomorrow morning. Because supposedly, right, the worst part of the weather is going to be tonight, where there's supposed to be ice. So we'll see if that materializes. So just to be safe, no prayer service tomorrow morning. All right. I thought I had a slide. Yes, I wanted that one. Okay. I'm going to be talking about this before I get going to my sermon. I want you to be praying about this. We have some ministry opportunities that we want you to think about. And here's some that any of these ministries, you don't even have to be anywhere. You can do it from your home. But what we need is people who are willing to work on our website. There's two parts of the website. People who know how to actually get the information put onto the website, right? So it's more of a learning how to do that. And then the editor is more helping create the content to put on the website. We're going to be needing help with video editing, social media editor, or people who are willing to write news articles to put out. So anyways, I just wanted to put that out there. If the Lord impresses you, we need some of these ministries. And so we invite you to if the Lord impresses you, to go in there, just let me know. All right. Here are kids' sermon notes from last week. And again, I wanted to remind you that we're in this series. And the first part of this series is looking at really the law of nature, right? There's two ways that God reveals himself. There's the law of nature, and then there is the law of law of nature and his revelation in his word. And so we've been looking at the law of nature. We've been talking about life, the evidence of God in life. And of course, a lot of the kids started putting that in there. And of course, Eliana here puts in there is a God, okay? And so there must be a creator. We're talking about it. Everything's been designed. So anyways, our key word for today is right. Right. Okay. All right. Have you ever wondered, have you thought about why there is evil, why there is injustice, and why there is unfairness? Have you thought about why that's the case? Okay. Or why do we make excuses for some of our behaviors? Why do we do that? Oh, I'm sorry, this happened. Okay. Why do we make excuses for our behaviors? Why do we do that? Have you thought about why do you have rights? I have my rights. Well, why do you have your rights? Okay? Or why should women have rights? In the Bible times, they didn't. Well, actually, God gave women rights more than their culture did. Or why is slavery wrong? Have you thought about that? Why is racism wrong? Why is Mother Teresa good and Hitler bad? Why? Have you thought about fundamentally why those are things that we think about? Because see, in the end, across the world, we have a sense that we know that there is things that are right and there are things that are wrong. We inherently know that. It doesn't matter where you are, everywhere and everyone, there's a certain amount of things that we know this is right and this is wrong. Okay? We have that sense of good and evil that goes across the globe, that people know that. Have you ever thought about that? Why is that the case? All right? For example, Jesus says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And it's called the what? The golden rule. Well, you know what? That golden rule is found in many other cultures and in many other religions, right? Because there's a certain sense that there's right and there is wrong, okay? Right? The whole idea of do unto others is the idea of do unto others as you want done to you. You want good done to you? Well, what's good? What's evil? What's bad? Okay? Right? I think most people realize that murder is bad, abusing babies is bad, rape is bad, taking what's not yours is bad. We know they're wrong. But why? In a book, What We Can't Not Know, making the whole point of how society, how the world, no matter everywhere you go, people know that there's things that are just wrong. It's written by Waditsky, if I can pronounce his name right. Everyone knows certain principles. There is no land where murder is a virtue and gratitude a vice. C.S. Lewis in A Mere Christianity says this: think of a country where people were admired for running away in battle, or where man felt proud of double-crossing all the people who had been kindest to him. You might as well try to imagine a country where 2 and 2 made 5. Right? Because there's a certain idea that we know that there's right and there's wrong, that there's good and there's evil. And that this is a reality for everybody that we call a moral law. That there's a universal moral law. Other people call it also known as conscience. Don't you have a conscience, right? As to when you say that, don't you have a conscience? What you're saying, don't you know what's right and what's wrong? Don't you have a decency to think of what's right and wrong? Okay, or it also has been called natural law. Okay, now why is this true? Well, I'm going to just concentrate on 2 main points. One, the moral law is undeniable. Why? Because of the very questions I've been asking you. Why is it that we want our rights? Why is it that we fair? That's not fair, right? Because we have a sense that there is a right and a wrong. There's a just and injustice. There's fairness and unfairness, okay? If you object to anything, right? If you have, that's evil. As soon as you call something evil, you are appealing to a moral law. Right? Because, let's put it this way, right? How do you know that 2 + 2 = 5? Is that wrong or is that right? It's wrong. How do we know it's wrong? Because we know what is right. And what's right? 2 + 2 = 4. To be able to say something is evil is because there has to be something that is good. There's something you're comparing it to. There's something that you are evaluating it by. Okay? So in other words, the moral law is undeniable. The problem is that some people want to deny it. Okay? Some people want to say, oh, hey, there's no moral law. And there's a reason why they're doing that. But the reality is we know there's a moral law because of the reactions people have to it. Okay? So even those people who deny there's no moral law, in the way they live their lives, they live like there's a moral law. Okay? How do I prove that? Okay? Well, let's look at it this way. So we don't always want to acknowledge it, I just mentioned. Right? Oh, there's no moral law. Oh, it doesn't apply to everybody. All things are different. Okay? But as soon as a person says, that's not fair, that's not right, what are you appealing to? If I got treated wrong, hey, wait a minute, that's not fair. So-and-so got this. Why didn't he get this? As soon as you say that, what are you appealing to? A sense of fairness, a sense of there's something not right and wrong. As soon as you make that statement that you are reacting the way you are being treated, you are, in essence, saying that there is a standard that everybody needs to apply to. In the book, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist by Norman Geisler and Frank Turek, he says that the moral law is not always apparent from our actions as evidenced by the terrible things human beings do to one another, right? A lot of people can say, oh, there's no moral law. Oh, look, all the evil in the world, right? So the terrible thing human beings do to one another, but it is brightly revealed in our what? Reactions. What we do when we personally are treated unfairly. In other words, the moral law is not always the standard by which we treat others, but it is nearly always the standard by which we expect others to treat us. You catch that? In other words, oh, there's no moral standards. But if you take that person and you abuse them, you steal from them, you take from them, what are they going to say? That's not fair. That's not right. That's not just. Why? Because even though they're not willing to grant that there is a moral law, they are expecting it for themselves. And so people's reaction demonstrates that they know there's a right and there's a wrong, that there's a higher moral standard that we are all applying to. Frank Turek and Norman Gibbs in the book illustrated it this way. He says, when the terrorists took planes and flew them into our buildings and killed people, some people we know, at least are citizens of our country, we were outraged, right? But if we were to take airplanes and fly them into their buildings and killed their loved ones, they would be outraged. That's not right. That's not fair, right? In other words, when it happens to me, it becomes more revealing that there is a moral standard that we all live by, right? So one, the moral law is undeniable. Two, our reactions demonstrate that moral law and the fact that we expected that we are done right, that I am going to be treated fairly, okay? Another way that's demonstrated in our reactions, as I mentioned before, does anybody excuse good behavior? Oh, I'm sorry, I was really nice to you. No. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't do this. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't do that. When we excuse bad behavior, it's because we know that there is right behavior. All of these are telling us that there is a right and there is a wrong that is generally understood because there's a moral law that applies to everybody. Like I mentioned, a lot of our content today is coming from two books. One, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist by Norman Geisler and Frank Turek. And so they provided other ones. The moral law is undeniable, as we talked about. We know it by our reactions. They also talk about it's the basis of human rights. Why do we have human rights? Why after World War II did we have the Nuremberg trials and tried Nazis, okay, who were accused of genocide? Right? It was a war. Why? Because we're appealing to human rights. Where do human rights come from? Why do we have human rights? Right? That demonstrates the idea of a moral law, okay? The unchanging standard of justice. That's not just. Wait a minute, it needs to be fair. It defines a real difference between moral positions, right? It helps clarify when you have different moral positions. And of course, there's more details on this. Since we know that the absolute wrong, there must be an absolute standard of right. If we know if something is wrong, then there has to be a right. The moral law is the grounds for political and social dissent, right? A lot of dialogues that happen here have a lot to do because everybody thinks there is a moral right. So in the book, they illustrate it this way. In India, Hindus don't eat what? They don't eat cows. Why don't they eat cows? All right? Well, they're holy. Why are they holy? Well, because they believe in reincarnation, right? And so they don't want to eat a cow because grandma may be there. You follow me? Okay. What is the moral value? We don't eat grandma. Now here we don't look at it that way, but we also still have that moral value that we don't eat grandma. Right? The moral basic value, okay, is across the board. And there are no moral laws that we would not make an excuse for violating them, as we talked about making excuses. So what are the objections? Why is it that many people out there do not want to believe in a moral law? Say, oh, there's no moral law. Well, the first one that says, oh, well, it's a product of evolution. We have evolved to be moral because it's a good society, right? This is a huge debate. You're probably not familiar with it, but those on those side, oh, no, there is no moral law. Oh, well, we have a moral law because we've adopted it, we evolved, and we had a moral law. And that's what we have in our society because it's good for society. Whatever the excuse is the evolutionary process. Well, first of all, where's the scientific proof that the moral identity, the moral law, the sense that we have a right and wrong, came from evolution? It's just a story. You cannot prove it scientifically. It is just to try to come up with an explanation why they inherently know that there's a certain sense of what's right and what's wrong. Again, also, biology, genetics, do not determine what's right and wrong. Let me illustrate this way. Can anybody here with blue eyes? All right, wow, we got quite a few, right? All right. Can we put these people in jail because they have blue eyes? Is that the way our system works? Okay, no, right? Because genetics don't determine what's right and wrong. On the inverse, if you were to say, well, my genetics says it's okay to kill people, if you're going to use that argument, then killing people is not a problem. See, you can't use evolution to make a determination as to what's right and what's wrong. It's just some kind of explanation for what they know is to be true, that there's a right and wrong. What about the situation changes? Again, why is killing people wrong? Right? Oh, well, because it's good for society. It's good for the environment. It's good for people. Why is it wrong? Sorry, I must have gone. All right, I went backwards. Hit the wrong thing. Who is this? Anybody recognize this? I heard it over here. Who is it? Jacques Cousteau, right? Now, you're pretty young, Cody, but you remember, he was a big person when I was younger, right? He did a lot of documentary, deep sea diving, things like that, a whole bunch of nature information, okay? All right, so it's Jacques Cousteau. But Jacques Cousteau believed that the planet was overpopulated. There are many people, there are many organizations that believe that the planet is overpopulated. But notice this statement. This is gathered from an interview that was done with UNESCO. He was in favor of human population control and population decrease to address the limits of planetary resources. He made a stark statement emphasizing the urgency of stabilizing population growth, even using shocking language to illustrate the scale of the issue. That the world's population must be stabilized, and to do that, we must eliminate 350,000 people per day, though he also acknowledged how horrible such phrasing is. Maybe for evolutionary reasons, it would be better to exterminate a certain number of people on the planet. There are people who believe that. Why is it wrong? Right? So if you're just going to go by evolutionary reasons, if it's good for society, actually, if it's good for me to go and take somebody else's stuff, it's going to make me richer and my family better. That would be the survival of the fittest. But why is it that we know that that's something about it, it's wrong? Right? So we talked about evolution. Another one, the claim is there's no such thing as absolute truths, right? There is no such thing as moral law because there's no absolute truths. Okay? Now there's a problem with that statement. Can anybody tell me what the problem with that statement is? It's an absolute truth, right? It's self-refuting, okay? If you're saying you're making a truth statement that there's no absolute truth, but that's an absolute truth, right? It's self-refuting. It's like saying you should never say never, or we should always avoid using the word always, right? You just defeated your own point. When you make a statement that there is no absolute truth, you in essence are making an absolute statement. Right? To claim that no one knows the truth, you have to know the truth to be able to say that, right? If I say nobody knows the truth, how do you know that nobody knows the truth? Unless you have something to compare it to. And usually when people are saying that statement, they're saying that they're the ones who knows the truth, right? These are the objections that people have. Do you remember, I don't know, it's been a long time since I've been in elementary school. But I remember times, getting together and we start talking about things and arguing about things, right? And it's been a long time since I've been there, but imagine, some kids coming together, a little kid says, "Hey, that's my seat." It says, "Well, who said so? Your name's not on that seat." And then he goes, "Well, everybody knows that everybody sits in the same place." "Well, I don't know that. Who says that?" Says, "Well, that's just the way it is. You should know." And the kid will respond and say, "Says who?" Now, why are they asking that question? Says who? Because, see, in the end, the only way a law applies to everybody is there has to be somebody who sets the law for everyone. Says who? And in an essay done by an Arthur Allen Leff, he was an attorney at Yale, he was really kind of arguing from the idea that there is no moral law, but struggling with that issue and how do we apply that in society, right? You've got other atheists who are saying, well, where do human rights come from? Well, they can't come from the majority because the majority can vote to get rid of the minority, right? And so they struggle back and forth. In an essay talking about this, he concludes the essay by saying this: as things are now, everything is up for grabs, right? This whole discussion, wait a minute, where do rights come from? Is there a moral law? All these issues. Nevertheless, napalming babies is bad. Starving the poor is wicked. Buying and selling each other is depraved. There is such a thing as evil altogether. Now, says who? God help us. In that, people who think about this recognize that we know a sense that there is a right and wrong. And of course, this goes back shortly after the Vietnam War, right? Napalming babies, this is the context of that. But we have a sense that there's something wrong. But wait a minute, there's no moral law. How can we have a sense? And even though we struggle with this is still wrong. Says who? God help us, right? That whole struggle, that in the end, if there is no one standard, how do you say what's right and wrong? Why is it wrong to kill Jews? Why is it wrong to enslave people? Why is it wrong to do all those things unless we know that there's a higher standard by which we live by? So there is a moral law. And here's the way Frank Turek and Norman Geisler put it in his book, right? It's a reason statement. Every law has a lawgiver. Where do laws come from? Right? They're not material, right? If we say a law that you have to come to church and you have to wear blue, okay, I'm okay. Some of you are in trouble, right? Okay, but guess what? It is someone making a law. It is people who make laws. Right? Legislatures make laws. Churches make laws, right? We make laws. Every law has a lawgiver. There is a moral law, right? And that's kind of the point that we make in the sermon, that all the evidence points to the fact that we inherently know that there's a right and a wrong. And it's most apparent when we expect it for ourselves. We may not think about others, but when my family is abused, when I am robbed, when I'm taken advantage of, when I'm treated unfairly, that's not right. Says who? If there's no moral law. So every law has a lawgiver. There is a moral law. Therefore, there must be a moral lawgiver. And that moral lawgiver has to be above all of us to make a law that applies to every person, everywhere, every time. C.S. Lewis, again in the book Mere Christianity. As an atheist, my argument against God was that the universe seemed so cruel and unjust. But how had I gotten this idea of unjust and unjust? A man does not call the line crooked unless he has some idea of a straight line. What was I comparing the universe with when I called it unjust? So in our series, we've been talking about an invitation to reconsider God. And we've given you several evidence to challenge you. We cannot prove to you God. But in the end, you have to go and search for this. And we've provided several clues, right? We spend a lot of time talking about the universe, the design of the universe. We talked about the design of life. And again, and all of these subjects, we could have spent a whole lot more. I can't cover in just like 30, 40 minutes. There's books written on all these subjects. Today, those two previous ones were scientific. Today, we're talking about the evidence from something that we know inherently, morally. There's a right, there's a wrong. Where does that come from? Every law has a lawgiver. There is a moral law. Therefore, there is a moral lawgiver. And that is God. Because in the end, if there is no God, there is no ultimate right and wrong. Anything is acceptable because there's no standard that we all apply to. So again, if you have questions or comments, there's a QR code. If you have questions about this, that encourage you to send those questions. But I want to close with this. James 4:12. There is one lawgiver who is able to save and to destroy. Exodus 20, right? I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. Because what? He is the lawgiver. And then the psalmist, in Psalms 19, the law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. The statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. There is a moral lawgiver, and that moral law is good. And so I invite you to consider that there is a lot of evidence for God. Actually, I would challenge you, right? Even in evolution, right? That whole thing, an evolutionary explanation as to why there's moral laws. They're just stories. There's no scientific evidence for it. We're going to, again, talk more about that in the series. The evidence is overwhelming to the reality that there is a God. And then he gives us a law, and that law is perfect. It's good for us. So again, I have this on your notes. So a lot of the material that's shared today comes from these two main books. There are other ones if you want to learn more about that. So I invite you to go ahead and open up your hymnals as we have our closing song, Immortal, Invisible, God Only Wise. Let's stand. Blessed, most glorious, the Ancient of Days, Almighty, victorious, thy great name we praise. I'm resting, unhosting, and silent as light, nor wanting, nor wasting, thou Our gracious and loving Father, Lord, the evidence for you is all around us. Not only in your written word, Lord, but it's available in the natural law, in the world around us, in the fact that we know inherently in our heart that there is right and then there's wrong. And so, Father, I pray that as we talk about these and we interact with others, or we're talking with family and friends, that we might be able to challenge them to just think about all the evidence for you. And so, Father, I pray that you'll be with us as we go from here, that your Holy Spirit will be with us. Help us, Lord, to live for you. Help us, Lord, to share your word. Help us, Lord, to be able to tell others about you. For we